Hello, you're on the channel Infidelity and Revenge. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can do it right now. Enjoy watching. He couldn't look me in the face. He knew what he had just done to me, and he knew how much it hurt. But how could he not? My best friend since third grade, best man at my wedding, Russell knew me inside and out. To make him feel better, I said. Relax, buddy, we don't chop heads off messengers anymore. Are you sure she didn't see you? I don't think she saw, but am I sure? No, I can't say I'm sure. I saw her as soon as I came in the door, and I turned to go up to her. And when I saw her making out with a guy, I turned around and found a dark corner to sit down. If she saw me, she didn't show it. My best friend just told me that my wife is cheating on me. He called me at work and asked me to meet him for a drink after work. As soon as I saw his face, I knew something was bothering him, and I knew Russell well enough to know that it wouldn't do me any good to start right in and ask him what was wrong. He wore himself out until he couldn't say it. All I could do was wait. It took about 5 minutes of small talk and beer sipping before he finally got to the point. Rob, I'm sorry as hell to be the one to tell you this, but Kim is cheating on you. I wanted to jump up and yell at him, no, damn it, you're wrong. But I knew he wasn't. He had known Kim as long as I had, so it was unlikely he could have seen someone else and mistaken her for Kim. I asked him how he knew, and he told me the story. He went on a blind date as a favor to his sister and, not surprisingly, at least to him, the date turned out to be a disaster. He dropped the girl off at her apartment and decided he needed something stronger to drink. He was in an unfamiliar part of town, so he decided to go to the first bar he could find. He walked through the door of the establishment and saw Kim leaving the dance floor with some guy. They walked over to a booth along the wall, and just before they sat down, he saw Kim kiss the guy passionately. Surprised, he found a place to sit and watch, and for the next hour he watched Kim and the guy drink, dance, and kiss in the booth. As they danced, they both pressed against each other, and the guy's hands were all over her. When they got up to leave, he gave them a moment and then got up and followed them out of the bar. He watched them get into the back seat of the car, and after a minute Kim's head was out of sight and the guy rested his head on the back of the seat. Russell didn't try to get close enough to look inside the car, but he was sure what Kim was doing there. After about 3 minutes, her head came up and they moved. Then Kim disappeared from sight again, and a few seconds later her legs rose into the air. At that point he pulled out of the parking lot and headed home. He relived what he knew for 2 weeks, not wanting to tell me until finally he couldn't hold back any longer. On the way home, I thought about the night Russell said it happened. I remembered that I was in Pittsburgh solving a production problem. I called Kim at noon to talk to her and she told me she was going out for drinks with the girls after work so I wouldn't worry if I called and she didn't answer. I wondered if she did that every time, something Russell had seen me do when I left town. If she did it at least twice a month. It just didn't make sense to me. I saw absolutely nothing in Kim's attitude toward me that indicated dissatisfaction or loss of affection. We had been married for 10 years and I thought it had been a good marriage, but apparently I was wrong. One thing I knew for sure, I would figure it out. The first thing I had to do was figure out for myself what was going on. I couldn't tell Kim about what Russell had seen, because that would just degenerate into a shouting match interspersed with things like, "I'm your wife. Who the hell are you going to believe, him or me?" Frankly, I was going to believe Russell. He had no reason to lie to me, unlike Kim. If for some odd reason Russell had lied to me, it would be easy enough to find out. I'd give Kim plenty of rope to hang herself with, and if she didn't, I'd take a closer look at Russell. I was supposed to make an inspection trip to our plant in Evansville, but I rearranged my schedule so Destin could make the trip. I arranged with my boss to take a week's vacation and explained the reason so he could properly answer any calls Kim might make to the office. I then enlisted Destin's help. I knew he would help me because he had just gone through a nasty divorce after catching his wife in bed with another man. I explained the situation to him and he said he would be happy to help. I bought a disposable phone at a convenience store, and the only person I gave the number to was Destin. Monday morning I kissed Kim goodbye, telling her I would call her as soon as I checked into the hotel. I said I would see her in 4 days and left for the airport. At the airport, I left my car in a long-term parking lot, rented a mid-size sedan, and then went and found myself a motel room for 3 nights. At 2 in the afternoon Destin called me and told me he had checked into room 213 at the hotel in my name. I parked further down the street from where Kim was working when she finished work that evening and followed her. She headed straight home. I gave her an hour and then called her on my regular cell phone and told her where I was staying. If you call me and a strange man answers, don't hang up. There's been a mix-up with our reservation. There's some sort of convention going on in town and there weren't enough rooms, so Destin Harvey and I are sharing a room. I'll get back to you tomorrow. Love you, honey, bye. I sat on the block until 10:15, and when she still hadn't left the house by then, I headed for my motel. I called her at noon the next day and reminded her that Wednesday was trash collection day and to remember to put the trash cans out on the curb. I'm having dinner with the CEO and production managers tonight, so if it's late, I probably won't call and wake you up. If you don't hear from me by 9, don't wait up. I love you, too. Bye-bye. I followed her again that night and she went straight home and never came out again. I began to wonder if I was jumping to conclusions when I thought she was using my trips out of town to cheat on me. I only had one night before I was supposedly supposed to go home, and she went home and stayed home every night I watched. I didn't call her the next day at lunch, and at 5:30 I got a call from Destin saying Kim had called and left a message for me at the front desk. I called her on the disposable phone to see what she wanted. Just wanted to let you know that I'm staying with the girls tonight after work and will probably be home late. I didn't want you to worry if you called and didn't get an answer. Be careful, honey. Take a cab home if you drink too much. I'll be home tomorrow and we can pick up your car. That's why I love you, baby, for always thinking of me and my well-being. I love you. I love you too. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. When she came home from work, I followed her. She drove to the other side of town and stopped at the same bar where Russell had seen her. I had never been to the bar and didn't know its location, and I didn't want Kim to know that I was following her, so I moved my car to where I could follow her car in a way that she wouldn't notice me. I knew many of the girls Kim worked with, and as I sat watching the doors, I didn't see even one of them show up. Just after dark, Kim got out, got in her car, and started it. I prepared to follow her, but all she did was pull the car to the back of the parking lot and park it in the darkest corner. She turned off the lights and just sat there. About 5 minutes later, a couple guys came out, walked over to the car and stood there for a few minutes talking, and then one man got in his car and drove off. The second man stood and watched until the car was out of sight and then turned and headed to the far end of the parking lot where he got into Kim's car. He and Kim slid toward each other and started kissing. After about 5 minutes of hugging, they both got out of the car and I expected to see them walk back to the bar, but what they did was sit in the back seat of Kim's car. I know it sounds stupid, but up until that moment I had been telling myself that Russell had gotten it all wrong. That Kim loved me and wouldn't cheat on me. I was convinced that there was a reasonable explanation for everything, but the fact that she deliberately climbed into the back seat pushed the denial right out of my head and heart. They started kissing again, and Kim slowly slid down until I couldn't see her anymore. I could see the man looking down at her, and even though I already knew everything I needed to know, I had some perverse need to actually see what Kim was doing. It wasn't enough for me to just know that Kim was fucking this guy. I had to see. I got out of my car and headed toward Kim's car, trying to keep my distance so the man wouldn't notice me approaching them. As I got closer to them, I heard Kim moaning. I stood up so I could see what was going on in the car. A minute or so passed and Kim screamed, oh God, I'm coming, oh shit, you're so good, baby, so good." The guy moaned softly, and then uttered his first word since I'd gotten there to watch. "My turn," he said. "Now it's my turn." At that point I started clapping my hands and shouting, "Bravo, bravo, great performance. Wonderful first act. Kim looked up, saw me, and her face lost all its color. I'd heard of faces turning pale, but this was the first time I'd ever seen it. Great show, guys. I wish I could stay for the second act, but I have some pressing personal business to take care of. Kim was trying to get out from under the man when I turned and walked back to my rental car. I was just pulling away from my parking spot when Kim finally managed to get out of her car and ran up to me. She motioned for me to wait as I slowed down. I pulled out of the parking lot and headed back to the motel. The next morning, I drove to the airport, returned the rental car and picked up mine from the long-term parking lot. I stopped by the office and Kathleen, our receptionist, told me that Kim had called half a dozen times and said it was very important that I call her at work as soon as I got the messages. I thanked her, went to my office, called the company attorney and asked him to recommend a good divorce attorney, and then called the number he gave me. Fortunately, the attorney was able to see me the same day and I made an appointment. I then did everything I felt I needed to do to cover my ass. I canceled all joint credit cards, called the local newspapers, and placed a notice in the legal department that I was no longer responsible for any debts incurred by Kimberly Becker, née Atwood. I went to the bank and took half of my checks and savings and withdrew my name from all accounts, leaving them in Kim's name only. That afternoon I received some bad news that day. We were living in an impecunious marriage, so everything was split in half. It didn't matter to me, so I told him to go ahead and prosecute. He told me he could file the next day and I asked him about the restraining order keeping Kim away from me and the house. He said a restraining order is hard to get without a very good reason to get one, and so I lied. I told him that Kim and her lover had threatened to kill me when I caught them, and I was afraid they would try to finish me off to get insurance on my life. All right, he said. A threat like that might speed up the case, but you'll have to prove it when we hold the hearing or it'll be cancelled. That's fine. As soon as I move out of the house, I'll waive it, and we won't even have to have a hearing on it. How soon can that be done? I can be at the courthouse when it opens, and if you're willing to spend $200 to expedite the process, she'll have the paperwork by 3 o'clock this afternoon. Okay, do it. I arranged for him to call me as soon as Kim was notified, then returned to the office. Kathleen was gone for the day, but she'd left 7 messages on my desk, all from Kim, all asking me to call her as soon as possible. I crumpled them up and threw them in the trash, then sat down at my desk and started looking through the classifieds for an apartment closer to work. I spent most of the next morning looking at the apartments I'd looked at, and at 2:30 I signed a lease on one of them. At 3:10 I got the call that Kim had been notified. I rented a truck, bought some packing boxes, and drove to the house. At 4, the courier who had notified Kim came by and handed me a copy of the restraining order. It stated that Kim couldn't come within 500 feet of me. A couple of my friends helped me, and by 5:15 I had everything I wanted out of the house, except for my clothes, and loaded into the truck. I was busy loading them when Kim pulled into the driveway. She got out of the car and headed toward me, and I yelled at her to get back in her car and get away from the house before I called the police on her for violating the restraining order. This is stupid, Rob. We need to talk. No, we're not going to talk. Actions speak louder than words, and I've seen you in action. Now go away. Not until we talk. All right, Kim. I gave you a chance. I pulled out my cell phone and turned on the preset to call the police, then went into the house and locked the door. Kim was pounding on the door, demanding to be let in, when a police car pulled up in the driveway. I went outside and gave them my copy of the restraining order. They read it and then told Kim that she needed to move at least 500 feet away from the house. She protested, saying that it was her house too and she had just as much right to be there as I did. Eventually the officer told her to get out or he would take her to the station. I stood there hoping she would continue to argue with him and he would take her away, but Kim had a sudden attack of smarts. She got into her car and drove to the end of the block. I thanked the officer for his quick arrival and then finished loading the truck and left the house. After first making sure Kim wasn't trying to follow me, I drove to my new apartment and started settling in. I Spent the weekend getting comfortable and then went back to work on Monday. I hadn't been at my desk 2 minutes when Kathleen poked her head through my office door and told me Kim was online too. I really didn't want to talk to her, but I wasn't being fair to Kathleen by making her take all the calls and putting off talking to Kim, so I picked up the phone. Yes. Kyle, please talk to me. I don't have anything to say to you, Kim. But I need to talk to you. Go ahead, I'm listening. I can't do it over the phone. Rob, people keep coming into the office. Come home, Rob. Please, just come home. I'll make dinner and we can sit and talk. No, thanks. I don't have a home, and I don't see any reason to come back to your place. Okay, pick a place and I'll meet you there, but please Rob, I need to talk to you. I really don't want to talk because it would be a waste of my time, but you can drop by my office when you're done with work. Everyone should be gone by then. I'll give you 15 minutes, and that's it. She showed up at 10 to 6. When she entered my office, I pointed to a chair and said, Okay, Kim, what do you want? This is what I don't want, Rob. I don't want a divorce. I didn't want a wife who picks up guys in bars and fucks them in the back seats of parking lots, but I have one anyway. I'm sorry you saw that, Rob, but even so, it shouldn't be the reason for our divorce. You can't be serious about this. You're fucking other men and I'm supposed to be okay with that. It's not other men, Rob. There's only one. I dated Brendan before I met you. I ran into him on one of my nights out with the girls from work. I've been dating him for about 3 months. What, you knew him before you met me and that's why it's okay? Rob, I've been dating him for about 3 months. Have you noticed any lack of affection for you during that period? Have I been less loving than I have been throughout our marriage? I love you, Rob, and I don't love Brendan. My meeting Brendan cost you nothing, Rob. Nothing at all. I only see him when you're out of town. I've never come to see you after I've been with him. Then I guess it's okay, then. What I'm trying to convey to you is that my meeting with Brendan hasn't hurt us in any way. I'm not disrespecting you by coming to see you just now from Brendan. I'm not sneaking up behind your back to see him when you're home. The point is, Rob, you're my man. I love you, honey, and you're the only one I want to grow old with. I'm sorry, Kim, but I see things differently than you do. You say you don't disrespect me, but I say you showed me extreme disrespect when you cheated on me with another man. I can't accept that. I can't equate your statements that you love me, want to grow old with me, and that I'm your man with the fact that you're fucking some other guy. It just doesn't compute. If I was really your man, you wouldn't be fucking Brendan at all. And I'm not buying that you're fucking Brendan just because you dated him before. You met me. If that were the case, I'd have to accept that sooner or later you'd have slept with half a dozen other guys you had sex with before you met me. God, Rob, I would never do that to you. You're already doing it with Brendan. Rob, I fucked Brendan because he's a fantastic fucker. Oh really, I think that explains everything and makes it right. Look, baby, I love you, and I never wanted to hurt you. I don't want to cause it now, but I have to be honest here if I want any chance of saving my marriage. I fuck Brendan because he gives me something you don't. You're a wonderful man, a fantastic husband in every way but one. You're disgusting in bed. You're tender and affectionate, but you don't seem to care about sex at all. Tuesdays and Saturdays, boring sex like clockwork, one time, and then you roll over on your other side and fall asleep, leaving me to get up, go to the bathroom and finish what you didn't do. I need more than that. When I ran into Brendan on my night out with the girls, I remembered how we had made love with him 3, 4, and sometimes even 5 times a night. I wondered if he could still do it, and when he started hitting on me, I went to the motel with him. It was just sex, Rob. There was no love or affection there, just regular hardcore sex. He gave me something you didn't have. It was just sex, Rob. It didn't diminish my love for you one bit. If it was a choice between you and no sex life or Brendan and great sex, I chose you, Rob. Gosh, Kim, I'm so happy to know that. Let me ask you something. When I'd come home from work and you didn't feel like cooking and you'd say, "Can we go out to eat?" Did I ask you out? Yes, you did. When you'd come up to me and say you'd had a rough week and you wanted to go out and have some fun and blow off steam, did I invite you out? Yes, Rob, I did. In fact, didn't I usually do what you asked me to do? Almost always. Then why in God's name didn't you tell me, "Rob, my sex life sucks," and then ask me to do something about it? You never complained, so how was I supposed to know? My sex drive isn't that strong, and I was fine with it on Tuesday and Saturday, and you went along with it. If I fed you hot dogs every night for a week and you got tired of eating hot dogs, would you tell me? Fuck anyone you wanted, but talk to me about something as important as your sex life. Oh, no, I can't do that. I'll just go fuck some other guy. At least it's nice to know that if you had a choice, you'd choose me over Brendan, but you don't have a choice, Kim, and I do. And since I have to choose between living with an unfaithful whore or divorcing her, I'm choosing divorce. I gave you a chance to talk, and now we're done. Please don't bother me anymore. Anything else you need to say, you can let me know through my lawyer. Please leave. Rob, please don't do this. I love you, baby. I really love you. Go, Kim. Just go. Tears streamed down her face, but she got up and left without another word. The divorce was final last week, and I haven't seen Kim or spoken to her in the last 6 months. I miss her. I really do. I still love her and I suppose I always will. If I had just started my car and driven away when I saw her getting into the back seat of her car with Brendan, and then told her about it when she got home, we might have been able to work things out. But I didn't leave, and there was no way I could have stayed with her after watching what she was doing in the back seat. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to rate the video and leave your comment.